Welcome to the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast, offering tips, insights, and advice from the best in the publishing industry.
Hello, and welcome to the All Things Book Marketing Podcast. I'm Corinne Moulder, Vice President of Business Development, and excited to step in today as the host. Today, we are joined by creative coach and book marketing expert, Jennifer Graybeal, Jen Graybeal. Jen Graybeal is dedicated to empowering authors through encouraging feedback, collaborative problem solving, and gently applied tough love. In 10 years of coaching, workshops, and editing projects, she has helped over 1,000 authors create stories they are proud of and businesses that align with their individual vision of success. Jen is a certified creativity coach with a degree in English, an ever-expanding to-be-read pile, and a furball assistant that is usually on her lap. I wonder if they're there today. Visit her website for client testimonials at jengraybeal.com or follow her on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Jen the Editor. Jen, thank you for being here today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Corinne. I'm so happy to chat with you.
And I have to say, it was a very serendipitous meeting that we had. Not you and I personally. We had a couple of colleagues from Smith attending the NINC conference this year in Florida.
Yeah.
First time going down, where I know you got to meet a couple of my colleagues. But how was the show for you?
Oh gosh, NINC was so much fun. First of all, it takes place right on the beach. You're right there on the sand, which is always puts me in a great mood. And quick shout out to the folks at Tradewinds Resort because the week after that we were there was when the hurricane came through. They are taking good care of themselves and putting the hotel back together. So it looks like it's going to be great for next year already. So they have been in my thoughts a lot. But the NINC conference is one that is such a great conference to go to because it's all authors that are very professionally minded. You have to qualify with income in order to be a member of NINC. And then once you're there, everyone is operating at such a high level that it really challenges everything that you come in thinking about, and seeing that there are so many different ways to run an author business. So many people doing so many different kinds of things, and really seeking out the way to be the most effective and profitable version of themselves.
Yeah, and I should clarify too that NINC is Novelist Inc. So that's really based for the fiction author, which I know, Jen, you live in that world quite deeply. I did tell you when we first connected a few weeks ago that I had serious FOMO because after NINC, you were heading to AuthorNation. And because you're the first contact I've talked to who's been there, and this was the inaugural event, I would love to hear, even just between NINC and AuthorNation, some of the takeaways that you're seeing bubble up in this fourth quarter that you think might be setting some trends and cadence for what we can expect in the book marketing world related to nonfiction or fiction for 2025.
Yeah, I thought the AuthorNation team did a fantastic job. It was their first go around for putting on a conference, and they are sort of coming off the coattails of 20 books to 50K, which a lot of people really loved going to that conference as well. And I was very impressed with how great the networking opportunities were, the number of sessions that were available. That was the hardest part, probably, is that there's 5, 6 different sessions all going on at once, and I want to go to 4 out of the 6 every single time. So they are recorded, which is great, and there's a digital option for folks that don't want to go out to Vegas. But the team just really put a lot of care and a lot of thought into trying to hit not only the folks that are some craft messages, but as some business conversations, and also some things to just really challenge you. What is a different way to think about how you go about your business? What is something, what is a new tool or a new process that you might be able to use that expands your business and really can build your following. So that was a really great thing. And I think in terms of trends that we might be seeing, it's really about being able to take advantage of some of those new possibilities that are out there. Anything from, we've seen Amazon has recently announced that they are going to that they're going to stop with the Vela program. And there were a lot of authors that had done well on Vela, that had garnered a following. And so that conversation about, well, what do you do now with your serial and where can that go? Having those kinds of conversations, being able to think about, if you have a book that is a novel that has already been published, right, and is within your control, if it's a traditionally published book, you may not have this option. But for self-published authors, you have a lot of options in terms of how you can leverage things like serialization, how you can leverage things like YouTube, how you can leverage things like even podcasting to be able to market your book and be able to get people interested in the story that you're telling, interested in those characters and interested in you as a writer, and being able to pull people into using all these different avenues to be able to pull people into your world and into your universe is really incredibly exciting.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And you've said it a couple times, you're building a business, right? You're not
Mhm.
just launching a book. And I will say, I think that is a wonderful thing to hear for whatever genre you're publishing in,
Mhm.
nonfiction or fiction. And Jen, I know that you primarily do work in the space of fiction, and you're mentioning some of the things there with serialization, with the storytelling. It's not just any fiction author, but the romance author
Mhm.
really does have a knack for, keeping ahead of what their next move is, continuing to populate and expand, the rhetoric within their own network and keeping people buzzing about their work. So when you take what you see as trending and these tactics and strategies that are starting to bubble up, what can we learn from the romance author? Again, be in any genre, what can we learn from them? Because they certainly are an anomaly in this industry, I feel.
Oh, they really are. The romance genre authors tend to be a few years ahead of everybody else.
Hmm.
Romance as a genre is um is a multi-billion-dollar entity on its own, and consistently generates more income, somewhere in the neighborhood of like triple what the next level genre makes. And what that does is it really pushes romance authors to be innovative and be able to meet their readers where they are. Because the other thing about romance readers, it's not just that there's a lot of books that are out there, it's that romance readers are voracious. A
Hmm.
romance reader will often be someone who is reading upwards of 5 books a week. And so there's a voraciousness to it where we don't see that in the other genres. And for non-romance readers, it's very common for someone to read a reader, someone who identifies as a reader, that will read 12 books a year. So and the other thing that's great about romance readers is that it's not just about, a lot of times when people think romance, they think of like contemporary romance, they think of, what they see in a rom-com and movie, those kinds of things. But the romance genre is so broad. It covers, there's fantasy, there's sci-fi, there's historicals from multiple time periods. There's some dark romance with some very scary and intense themes. There's thrillers, there's mysteries. So within the romance community, you can get so many different types of genres. And so we see readers that will go and read not only across the romance genre, but then extend that out, their readership, into other genres. So it's a really exciting place to be for that reason. We see so many options for authors to be able to go beyond. If you're a contemporary romance writer, for example, you can much more easily extend your reach into some of the other genres if that interests you in the writing side.
Yeah.
And then what that forces a romance author, though, to be is to really put their business hat front and center when they're writing. Certainly for a lot of new authors, they should write whatever lights them up, whatever makes them excited. And I will always tell an author that the next best thing for you to write, regardless of how many different ideas that you have, is whatever makes you most excited about it. Because whatever you're most excited about is going to come through in the writing. But when we think about the business side of what that looks like, sometimes that comes down to, how do you market a book that maybe is outside of the hot trend right now? And that's always going to happen. There, everything is kind of cyclical. There's things that are we saw with Bridgerton, kind of a rise in some historical interest, but and then we see, vampires coming in and out of fashion every so often. But as they say, vampires never die. So um, even if you are somebody who's writing vampires now that are less popular, there's definitely going to be an upward trend here coming pretty soon. The big thing right now we see in the romantic world is romantasy.
Mm.
Um, Lots of dragons, lots of sword fighting, that type of thing. So it can be a really exciting place to be. So there's always something that's happening, something that's going on.
Yeah.
And we really love to see that.
Oh, Jen, I love that. And I have to say, again, because we work here in fiction and nonfiction and different areas. And I feel what we always know to be true when we're working with an author taking a message out to media is you have to start with your niche audience and you have to
Hmm.
start with where the true target reader lives. And so to hear
Hmm.
just even the breadth of the romance genre, you're still encouraging that, if it's a romance book, you have to niche down. You have to find the smaller network of where to
Hmm.
start before you can start expanding out from there. So I do appreciate that, and I can hear
Hmm.
that very, very loudly. So while the romance author might be the anomaly, I feel like marketing is not something that's easy for many to do.
Hmm.
And with your years of experience as a creative coach, as an editor, as a marketing coach, why do you find it's so hard for authors to start the marketing process and why it's so intimidating?
There's a couple of things going on here. The first thing I'll say is that I think because authors become authors because they love to write.
Mm,
And for some of them, that means finding a traditional publisher who is going to help them along with the publishing process. And there's a belief there because the practice used to be that the publishing house would take care of all of the marketing. And the author was able to really just focus on the writing. And more, we are seeing that to be not the case. Publishers have cut budgets pretty significantly. There are more and more junior marketing folks that are in place. There's sort of a one size fits all approach with some publishers. Some publishers are great about being much more individualized in their marketing. So I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush, but pretty much across the board, I'm hearing lots of less spending and maybe focusing on only a small number of high level authors and that everybody else is not getting the same treatment, which means that as an author, you have to fill in. Now,
mm,
and a self-published author kind of knows that going in. When they have made the decision that they are going to self-publish, they recognize that everything that's involved in publishing and marketing and sales are all going to fall on their shoulders. So the only difference is that trad pub authors have been a little more surprised, self-pub authors are less surprised. But I think once they've kind of realized that they have to do the marketing, a lot of times what happens is that they run straight into tactics. I need a social media account, I need to run ads, that type of thing. And while those things are true, though marketing, we have to remember, is a really big, giant umbrella of expertise.
mhm,
There are people that get master's degrees in marketing. There's people that get master's degrees specifically in digital marketing.
mhm,
So there's a ton of knowledge and information that's out there about this, and in terms of best practices and what works and the why behind why certain things work. And so when we jump straight in, right, a lot of times as authors, they don't necessarily give themselves the chance to ramp up the learning. They take a class that is, a couple of hours and they're like, "Oh yeah, you can just jump in. This is how it was easy for me." And we forget everything that kind of goes before it got easy. So, when you jump in and things are difficult and it's not working, um, you get a lot of it's not working before it actually works.
mhm.
And the fact of the matter is that's actually how marketing operates, even with great big companies. A great big corporation is going to do a lot of trend research. They're going to do some market research. They're going to see what else is happening in not only in the niche that they find themselves in, excuse me, but they will do research in other things, sort of the surrounding niches that are in that field. And then they'll do some test marketing, and then they'll do some focus groups. And so there's all these things that happen before we see a commercial on a broad scale.
Mhm.
And we forget that corporations are going to do all of that work in order to have that commercial finally be successful. But as authors and as small business owners, a lot of people go straight into I tried ads, it didn't work. I spent $500 on ads and did not see sales as a result. And and because it's coming out of pocket, that is a very difficult um, hill to climb for a lot of people. So there are a lot of different ways to kind of think about marketing, but it always, always, always comes down to the very minute details. It matters what words you're using on that ad. It matters what colors you've incorporated into that. It matters how often you send your newsletter. It matters whether you ask questions in your newsletter or not. These kinds of little tiny details make a huge impact on how effective your marketing is. And that's a word I don't hear enough people talking about, is what it means to have an effective marketing tactic that you are pursuing versus I post every day, right? And what that word really means. Because once folks realize that the the design process for effective marketing takes time, and most importantly, takes experimentation.
Mhm.
And the experimentation is where we often see people get very disheartened, because it is a matter of trial and error every single time. There. Sorry, I hope you could cancel that.
Well,
Cut that part out.
we certainly will. But I did see that in your background and in your approach to working with clients, that clear distinction of
hmm
strategy versus tactics. And I have to say, I do my spiel of marketing versus publicity, and I've said it for years, but that caught my eye because I can see, it being interchangeable, but it's actually not at all,
hmm
right? It's the tactical, the execution of it, the hands-on implementation
hmm
versus that higher level. So in setting the strategy up front and giving yourself room to trial and error, a bunch of these different areas, and troubleshoot and work through the confidence issues, because like you said, it's disheartening when you have the vision and it might not be as well received, but it's still opportunity to pivot and then go back to the strategy and the drawing board of the why behind it all. How much time should an author budget for prior to the launch of their book in assembling their marketing strategy so that they have time to trial and error and also just navigate life? Because I know, the mental load of launching a book is a lot. It's exciting, it's all fun eventually, but it's a lot of work. So to set yourself up for success, what do you recommend authors kind of have in terms of a runway time when they set their strategy?
Yeah. So I have seen, here's the thing about authors. Every
Hmm.
single one of them operate differently.
That's
And that's a really, really important thing for folks to keep in mind. I often say that, when you see an author doing something and you think, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. And I want that to be a phrase that is inspirational for people,
Mhm.
right? But instead, a lot of times it becomes something that we feel ashamed by, because we can't do what she does. She makes it look so easy, and I cannot even get half of the success that she's seeing. I can't get even 1/10 of the success that she's seeing. Therefore, there's something wrong with me. And when we turn that phrase into something that is hurtful and shameful for ourselves, that no longer helps us. And so we can't look at somebody else at what they're doing, because we don't know everything else that's gone on around it, behind it, under it, over it. We don't know what it has taken for that person to see that level of success. We don't know. Um, I was recently reminded of Holly Hunter in Broadcast News, which is a little bit of an older movie, but she is strong, and she is confident, and she knows exactly what she wants, and she's a very forceful person in the newsroom. in the course of this movie. And then we find out that she schedules 5 minutes of sobbing every single day. And
Mm,
that she has to make that time for herself to just completely break down and lose it. And I think it's important for us to remember that, even if we're not the type that schedules that type of that type
not a
of
bad idea.
breakdown. But it's important for us to remember that we don't know what's going on behind the scenes because the only thing that we see is the success. We don't know what went on behind the scenes first. So when we think about runway and timelines and that type of thing, I think 3 months is a really nice number for people to build up interest and get excitement behind
Mhm.
the launch day. However, in order for you to start on that 3 month day, you may have to start another 30 days or more ahead of time. And again, this all comes down to what else do you have going on in your life at the time? If you are somebody who publishes once a year versus somebody who's publishing once a month, are you somebody that has a number of books out, or is this your first one? Are you somebody that has a fully functioning marketing network that you can leverage, or are you somebody who's starting from scratch? So these are all sort of pieces that we have to play into how this is all going to operate and what this is going to work out. We also have to recognize that there are folks who are on a very natural sense are much better at posting on social media and or doing podcasts and or running their newsletter. And so wherever you are, you have to sort of compare yourself to yourself
Mm,
rather than to other people and see that whatever happens in this launch, the goal is to use that as a baseline. And then the next one, let's see what we can do better. It's always a learning process, and there's always something different that you can do. So all you can do, rather than attempting to make do everything exactly perfectly right, do do some things with the recognition that this is all an experiment, and there's going to be a review process to figure out what happened, what worked, what we want to repeat, and what we don't want to repeat. And that's kind of where we think about the difference between the marketing strategy and the tactics, right? Is that the strategy is sort of that overarching story that we're trying to tell.
mm,
What are we trying to get out into the market? How do we think about these things? And then the tactics are sort of all the little pieces that go into it. Um, I'm a Lego fan. I love building things with Legos. And
yes.
so the way I describe this is that the strategy is the picture that's in your head of what you want it to turn out like. A castle, a spaceship, um, a garden, like whatever the thing is that's in your head that you want to do. The tactics are each individual brick, and it's about putting them together in a way that conveys your overall vision. Um, and that's why I feel like it's very difficult for folks that don't go into marketing with a strategy and
Mhm.
haven't sort of thought through some of those higher level questions that they should be asking themselves and go straight into tactics, because if you don't have a vision for what you want to achieve, it's very difficult to put the pieces in place to make that happen for yourself.
Yeah. Oh, Jen, you're so great. I mean, I feel the Lego analogy is felt on this side. I actually did just look to see when the next Lego Master season is coming out. Totally unrelated, but I have two boys, and that's our one of our family shows, but they're going back in another season. But I do
Hmm.
have that vision of, and we are in Lego season here at my house. So we'll get the full picture on the front of the box, but then to think of each little brick really playing its part to make up that bigger picture I
Hmm.
think does really relate right to marketing. I love that. You said social media a couple of
Hmm.
times in your answers. I have to say, do my research behind an author call or exploratory call. Social media is where I like to go as well to get a flavor for what they're posting, what the voice is. But I also know, and I say this, it's the necessary evil in some ways to a lot of individuals. Authors themselves say they're introverts, and then you're pushing yourself to be an extrovert, you're pushing yourself to talk about yourself and the story behind the story, which is all uncomfortable and fun. Is social media still a major player in the marketing strategy? I think I have an answer to that. But if authors really feel, or they come in with their heels dug in saying, it is not my thing, posting is overwhelming, how do you take that conversation with a coaching
Hmm.
client when you know it is going to be a critical part to it all?
Oh yeah. I think there's a couple different ways to think about it. So, the first thing to think about is, are you using social media to find new readers, or do you use social media in a different way? And
Mm,
I think that for a long time, social media was a great way for people to find you. That you could have all this stuff out there, and Instagram would show that to various things, or Twitter would show a tweet to people that might be interested. And we aren't seeing that so much anymore. We are seeing changes to the algorithm, changes to the way that things are seen. So an Instagram, a very like widely seen Instagram post might appear to 20% of your followers.
mhm,
And only a tiny, tiny percentage of that are people that aren't following you, as it was like a suggested post or something like that. So we have to remember that as social media algorithms have changed, we have to be able to change alongside of it.
mm,
So for folks that enjoy social media and can put themselves out there and feel very confident in what they post, whether it's because they're posting specifically about their writing and their books, or whether they put, elements of their life, their real life out there, that kind of thing. That's a personal choice. And if they feel really confident in it, by all means, go ahead and do it. For folks that struggle,
mhm,
and the reality is, for folks that are feminine online, and especially for romance authors, there's a certain group of either people or bots that feel it is appropriate to be very inappropriate with you. And for some people, they can laugh it off and not worry about it. They don't, when bots come on and say mean things about their appearance or their house or whatever, they don't care, and and it just rolls. Other people, it hits them really hard, and it affects their ability to be creative and to be joyful. And that's something that we have to know about ourselves. So I don't see social media as a place that is required for everyone to be the same.
mhm,
You don't have to be super out there, and you don't have to do a lot of that. I have a process that I recommend to folks who don't enjoy social media, because I do think that there's value in it. And
mhm,
one of the reasons there's value is that at the end of the day, there are readers out there that want to connect with you and want to know what it is that you're doing. Some of them will subscribe to your newsletter. But there's a lot of people who, even if they subscribe to your newsletter, may never see it, because, they get 100 emails a day, and that's just the reality. If people are not opening your newsletter for whatever reason, it's going to end up in a different tab. It's going to end up in spam. Like, we have all these problems with email delivery. So social media is a place that maybe they feel more comfortable. Maybe that is a place that they would prefer to hear from you
mhm,
on. So we want to be able to serve those readers as well. So what I recommend for some folks is, instead of thinking about social media as a place that is doing outreach for you, that is going to find people who've never heard of you, instead think about social media as a place where you interact with your fans. In the same way that Facebook groups used to be able to provide that, or Facebook page used to be able to provide that type of interaction. If social media is specifically your fans, what do your fans want to know? What do your fans care about? And being able to talk more specifically about the books that you're creating and the books that you're putting out is probably just enough information for them. Maybe occasionally pictures of your dog or your pets, those kinds of things. But if we think about it as a place that is fan specific,
mhm,
it's much easier to think of stuff that we might want to post. So number one, I would say, is to reduce, if you feel like it's not working for you, that's okay. Reduce the amount of time and energy that you put into it. There are there are templates that you can find in Canva. Find some Canva templates that work with the color scheme of your book covers, and take a little time and create a list of pull quotes from your books. Pull quotes meaning it's a quote that's in your book that you can literally like pull and use somewhere else. So if you have some funny lines, some heartfelt lines, some moments that will make people giggle, some moments that will make people go, "Oh," those kinds of things. Incorporate, just make a list of them that you can pull, and then just pull them straight into the template and be able to post those, you know, a couple times a week. And that's probably enough as you are thinking about the books that are already published.
mhm.
If you have a new release that's coming up, think ahead of time. Again, thinking about that 3-month ramp up that you might be doing. Think about things like your covers, when your pre-order goes live. What do people want to know about the main characters, or about the conflict, or about the story, or about the plot? Like, what are some elements that you might want to pull in, and just kind of set those up. And you might be thinking, Jen, there's just really not enough. Like, if I'm going to post 3 times a week for 3 months, like I don't have that much stuff. Well, guess what? You can reuse it. You can reuse content. Again, only on a very popular post, 20% of your followers will see that post.
Yeah.
So you're looking at mostly in the neighborhood of 10% of your followers are going to see that. It's okay to reuse it. It's okay to post it again.
Mhm.
Reuse the caption, reuse the same image, and just put it back up. Because again, people are not on social media every single day for the most part. Some of us are, but a lot of people they are going to miss it sometimes. And so giving that another opportunity rather than feeling like you have to create a brand new thing every single time. And the other thing is that, there's people that are on Instagram, there's people that are on Threads, there's some people that are on Blue Sky, there's some people that are on TikTok, and you think I can't post to every single thing. It's like, well, but if you make one post and then you recycle it to all the different platforms, right? A lot of times people will only follow you on one platform.
Right.
So whatever you're posting on Instagram, the TikTokers haven't seen. So, create something that works for both. So you have this opportunity to really change the way that you think about social media. And don't worry about if people see the same thing twice, that's okay. Nobody's going to be mad. And the people that are mad are not here for your success anyway. And that's really important to remember. I was talking to an author who's really popular, actually just this weekend at AuthorNation, and she was talking about how hard it is when people say mean things and
Mhm.
how difficult that is. And one of the things that we have to remember, if you have thousands and thousands of followers, there is no way that you are going to make all of them happy. You can't. If I just want to point out that if you get more than 3 people trying to go to dinner at the same time and we can't seem to pick a restaurant, right?
Right.
So there's no way that you're going to make everybody happy all at once. So we kind of have to accept that as part of the process. But if you make yourself happy and you feel good about the stuff that you're putting out there, that talks about your book, a book that you should be proud of, a book that you hope is going to connect with readers, keep your focus there
Yeah.
and don't worry about anything else. Feel free to use that block button as often as you want.
Oh, I love that. I think we should name this episode Marketing Mindsets because I feel there's so much grace that you give to the writers. As again, the rhetoric is you have to put yourself out there, and we do it too. I mean, that's why people hire
Yeah.
us. It's why people hire you. They can't do it on their own. You can't do it alone. You
Hmm.
need the coaching, the guidance for it, but you're really humanizing, the fear on the other side of what
Hmm.
experts tell you you have to do. And so I really appreciate, Jen, the insights that you're sharing and the perspective, because I do feel this is marketing mindset and a boost for confidence. I also couldn't agree more with you. You don't need to be on everything all at once. And what I am taking from your answer there too is allow your book to be the catalyst for connection. So don't feel that you always have to go back into your own self and pull this content from a memory that you had or an interaction that you had. And please don't just start posting your food pics either, to really be thoughtful in letting your book or books, whether they're released or upcoming, do the work for you. And that's what really brings us together is making sure our books can get out there, individual
Exactly.
out there.
Exactly. Although I will say, if your book is one that highlights food, there's a
Yes,
great
there's a great exception.
there's a couple authors out there who she talks about having essentially fantasy creatures that go to the Great British Bake Off. So food is a real key element
Yes.
there. Those are the great pictures to post. I have a client who wrote a book, and the female main character makes the best chocolate chip cookies. So it is a key point in the story about chocolate chip cookies. And so having pictures of chocolate chip cookies will always make people happy. In fact, they will probably stop and find out why you have chocolate chip cookies on
I
your
love that.
on your list.
For my book club, we just finished the Briar Club a couple months ago, and
Mhm.
every chapter was a new perspective of one of the characters, and they always started off by retelling their dish that they made to bring to the Briar Club dinner. So yes, if it's food related, please by all means.
Oh
But
yeah. Yeah,
um,
put us in the mood. Definitely put us in the mood of and that's the thing, right? Sometimes when we talk about like what should I be posting on social media, um, there's a long standing rule about your 5 pillars, right? And if you come up with 5 things that you can post about, well, there's five, that's posting 5 days in a week, and you have a little bit of variation, but you don't, but it's something you've already thought through in your head so you don't feel at a loss every single time you have to go create a post, so that you're sitting there with a little plus button and thinking, I don't know what to post today. And you start going through like, what is it that's, what's on my mind or what's on my heart, and then realizing you don't want to be too vulnerable. So what are, those kinds of things. And you can, if you think about this ahead of time and figure out what those 5 pillars are, it just makes the whole process a lot faster. And for a lot of authors, I feel like pillar 1 is your work in progress, pillar 2 is your backlist, and pillar 3 is what you've been reading. So right there, you've got 3 pillars that are going to be consistent with what your readers might be interested in, consistent with your author persona, and supplying people with the type of stuff that they want to know. And then what are the last 2 pillars? Those might be things that speak to you. Like if you have food in your books, and that's a common theme, maybe it's about food and recipes and those kinds of things. One author I know consistently posts really pretty coffee cups. I don't know if she's pulling these from stock photography places, or if she just has a gigantic cabinet full of pretty coffee cups, but she does a nice job of putting a coffee cup in front of a pretty window and a post that just says, I hope you guys have a great day. And
yeah.
that's the kind of thing where she's connecting and she's kind, and it's such a positive little post to be thinking about. I'm thinking about you guys. I hope you're having a good day. That's such a positive thing for a lot of people to see. We're at 4. That's already 4 different things that you could post right there. And so if you have those things in at the top of mind, and can pull from them on a regular basis, like I said, making a pull quote list that includes not only your pull quotes I mentioned before, but the tropes or other kinds of like fun things that you might want to pull out of your books that you could have in like a sentence or two that you can put onto an Instagram post, or make the Instagram post into a reel, add the music, all these little tiny pieces that can make something, create something very quickly. So
Mhm.
you're not putting all of your creative energy into social media posts, because that's the other thing that really is hard for a lot of authors. They've put so much creativity um, into that social media posting, their newsletters, their advertising, that type of thing, which is great and it's important. But if you don't have enough creativity left to be able to write your books, right? Now we've created a problem. So whatever we can do to sort of make that a more efficient process, the better off you're going to be.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And that has to be our segue into one of the questions that I did have for you, because I feel, it's kind of creativity is innately in all of us, but there are ways that you can nurture and boost your creative views and how you look
Mhm,
at things and how you bring that to your work. So
mhm,
you are a certified creative coach.
mhm.
Tell me a little bit about what you have personally learned from the many clients that you've worked with, and what you feel creative coaching offers to authors, to creatives in general, or just to the everyday.
So, creativity coaching is not a term that a lot of people are familiar with. So,
Yeah.
what that is that is a certification that is specifically for working with creative professionals. Um, the coursework focuses not only on authors, but on visual artists and performing artists as well. And and it's looking at the professional side of what it is that they do, which is creating something that they have to put out into the world. It is a very project-based type of career for people to follow. There's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of am I the on-trend person that people would turn to for their entertainment? Um, and so there's a lot of creativity that is involved in each one of those types of professions. And so our training was really about being able to meet people where they are and figure out how to get to the next level. So when I think about how authors have to manage their creativity, I really want them to think about it as a resource.
Hmm.
It is a skill that you can build up, but it's also a resource that you can run out of. Um, I say that because, like I said before, when you are putting a lot of creativity into your social media and into your advertising and all those kinds of things, when you make the shift to have to solve creative problems in your book, what are they going to say next? What are they going to do next? All those kinds of things. You can feel like you are just it can feel like writer's block. It can feel like I don't know what it is that happens, and that frustration of being tied to this idea of the word count that you have to put down every single day. But word count doesn't come if you are, hitting your head against a wall. And we have to sort of recognize how to get out of that mode of being lost into the mode of of creativity kind of flowing. Now, for some people, we recognize that you do have to sit down, put your hands on the keyboard.
Yeah.
And if the words start flowing. So for some people, a great way to get writing is to start off with something that's not your work in progress, right? Follow a prompt or something like that, just to kind of work out the kinks and sort of get things moving in the same way that you might do a warm-up exercise before you run, just to kind of loosen up the gears. For other folks, it might be moving your body and going for a walk, right? Getting out and allowing sort of the oxygen to sort of flow and move around. And again, it's about sort of getting those gears working. It's important that we remember the role of sleep in being able to be creative. There's a lot of folks, especially when you're under stress, when things are difficult, whether in day jobs or in families or in the world, and all the things that we worry about and how that impacts our ability to sleep. And recognizing that if you're not sleeping well, a lot of other things in life are much more difficult, including your ability to be creative. So, sort of doing a little bit of an internal check about who you are and where you are, how things are affecting you, what you've done to create an environment where you can be creative, the boundaries that you've set with family members that are and people that are living in your house as to what it means when it's writing time. And sometimes we have to find that time when everybody else is asleep, or sometimes we find that time when everybody's out of the house and dedicate that time. But whatever it is that works for you, and it's again different for every single person, but being really cautious and taking care of that time. And when you find yourself in a place where the creativity isn't flowing, right? Like I said, sometimes it's a matter of getting up and sort of walking around, or put on some music and do a silly dance in your living room. I have a playlist called Living Room Concerts, and that just sort of like gets me out of the chair and moving, and sort of like knocks the cobwebs loose a little bit. But it's important for us to remember that sometimes sometimes it's a little bit of a bigger problem that we have to solve.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of different ways that we can sort of come at improving our relationship with creativity and caring for it in a way that is important. And one of the best ways for that is having a community around you that is also creative, whether those are authors or somebody else, but having people that you can kind of turn to. And if you need to vent, they listen to you vent. If you need to brainstorm, they're your brainstorm partners. If you need somebody to give you feedback on a chapter that's not working, those are your people. And who is it that fills you up? And sometimes it's being able to turn to those people and not talk about the writing, not talk about the business at all, but they are people who make you laugh. And
Mm-hmm.
they make you laugh, especially if you have people in your life that make you laugh until you cry and you can't quite catch your breath. That wonderful feeling of being completely overwhelmed with laughter and joy. When you find those people, hold on to those people, because that is such a freeing experience. And one night of that can unlock a lot of creativity for you to be able to move forward. Sometimes laughter isn't what we need, and sometimes what we have to do because things are overwhelming, crying is really the recipe that we have here. And I think that sometimes we look at crying as weakness, or we look at crying as something that makes other people uncomfortable, something that shows us a version of ourselves that we are not proud of.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of baggage that can come along with what it means to cry. But I encourage people to cry because it's such a wonderful release, in the same way that laughter can be a good release. And when you're overwhelmed, if you can take the time in whatever safe space, or with whatever safe people that you have in your life, to cry, ugly cry, let it go and let it all out. Because again, what you might find is that you can uh, release a lot of that negativity and a lot of that pain. And once it's released, you find that you are free to do some other things. You are free to think differently. You're free to problem solve in a completely different way. And so it's really important to have those safe people around you, whatever that looks like for you, or in some cases, to be able to cry alone. I remember being a new mom and needing to be out of the house because I didn't want the kids to know that I was overwhelmed. And being outside the house and crying in my car in a parking lot was the release that I needed at that time, in order to be able to go back and be a better mom, and to be the person that my kids needed me to be. And that whole process um was uncomfortable, but it was so necessary, and it did so much for me as a person. And we forget sometimes that we are people that feel big feelings and have big thoughts, and we have to care for those in some way. We don't get to just like leave life and go live on a Greek island for months at a time to restore. Although that sounds really fantastic.
Yeah, it does.
Sometimes we only get 30 minutes
Yeah.
to figure out how to get back into a mode of productivity, and that's all we have. So we have to make the most of that, and we have to be honest with ourselves and with the people around us for what it is that we need, who we are, and what makes us the best version of ourselves. And sometimes, instead of the best, sometimes best is is a word that has too much baggage associated with it. But if we think about being the favorite version of ourselves, the favorite version of myself doesn't worry too much about the cleanliness of the house, but is more concerned with creating a cozy environment for the people that I love, or creating a safe environment for my clients. That's the favorite version of myself. So if we can focus on those things and help us to remember that everything else will follow when we feel good about ourselves, then that creativity will come, and we can solve the problems that we have to solve.
Oh my gosh, Jen. Well, I was going to ask you what are some of the goals or resolutions for nurturing creativity in 2025, but you just said them all. So I will say we could all rewind in this part of the episode and go back a little bit. But I really appreciate those insights and takeaways, and feel that your clients are getting so much more insight to themselves by working with you. Because I'm hearing creativity is something you can nurture, that it's not
Mhm.
you're just born with the level of creativity that you are, and oh well, it'll just be tough if you can't refine it. And it comes with self-care, it comes with self-boundaries for yourself and for those others in your relationship, and nurturing the craft. So giving yourself time to practice it and to really feel it is what it sounds like. And I just love that for this time of year, especially. Um,
Mhm.
so, Jen, thank you so much for being on. Please share with us a little bit about how to get in touch with you, and what the best methods are for reaching out if people are interested.
Yeah. So Instagram is probably my favorite, but I do post on other places as well. I do what I follow. So if it's on Instagram, it's probably on Facebook. It's
There.
probably on TikTok. It's probably on Threads. It's probably on Blue Sky. So wherever you are happiest is the place to follow me. You can find me also at my website, and there's a contact form there if you want to reach out. I do want to say that for coaching, I offer a free coaching session for all brand new clients.
Mm.
Um, there's a lot of times when folks aren't sure what coaching is or whether it's the right thing for them. So I do a free 30-minute session for folks to reach out. Let's have a chat. Let's see where you are and what you're up against and what your questions are. And if I'm the right coach for you, that's great. We can continue on. If I'm not the right coach for you, I have a whole list of coaching resources that I send out to people if I'm not the right coach for you. People that do coaching that is more book oriented or people that do coaching that is more prescriptive, those kinds of things. I'm very much I meet you where you are. Let's talk about what's going on with you in terms of your business, in terms of your writing, but also in terms of your life, and sort of recognizing I am not a therapist.
I mean,
I'm not a therapist,
I feel like I owe you money right now. I feel like I just
but sometimes I will say, maybe this is a conversation for a therapist. But I'm here to help you with your author business. And it's very important for us to realize that we can't separate who we are from who we are as authors. And that it all happens in the same body, it all happens in the same brain, and we bring our whole self to who we are every single day. I do offer also a 6-week coaching intensive for authors. And this is an opportunity to really take some time to dig into some goals that you have. And what's interesting is that it works really well, not only for authors that have big goals, big achievements that they are trying to pursue, but it also works really well for authors that are completely overwhelmed. Because for authors that are overwhelmed, that want to continue running their business, a lot of times we think about what are the things that we can pull back on and how can we realistically pull back here, there, or wherever so that you have a stronger foundation to build on.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes those are the conversations we have. Work It as a program it's 6 weeks long. There's a workshop and a group coaching session every single week. They are all recorded, so if you can't attend live, there's that. It also includes 2 hours of individual coaching so that we can chat about exactly where you are and what you can do to work on your business. There's also a networking opportunity to meet with other authors that are at various stages of their career. I've had folks that are debut authors and folks that have 20 plus books out in the world. Be able to take this course and feel like they have gotten and been able to work on their business and have a meaningful experience, which meant the world to me. You put together some coursework, you put together some content, and you hope that people are going to enjoy it. But to know that how big of an impact it has on folks is really important. It's also not genre specific. Well, my background, like I said, is working with a lot of romance authors. I've had thrillers and mysteries and children's book poets take this course and be able to build on their author business as well. So something I'm really, really proud of.
And you should be, Jen. And no wonder you've been doing it for as long as you have. So please go check her out. And Jen, thank you so much for your time today. I know it's been a busy couple months for you, lots of conferences, but we're heading into the new year with some more perspective now on creativity.
Excellent.
So much. And please check out our website, smithpublicity.com. Sign up for our newsletter and check out our other podcast episodes. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Smith Publicity All Things Book Marketing Podcast. To reach us and learn about our many services, visit smithpublicity.com or send us an email to info@smithpublicity.com.